Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond 13th Gate. So the 13th Gate likes to encourage its actors to come up with backstories for their characters.
In this week's episode, we're going to ask our Gators what their favorite character they've played is and if they have a backstory for that character. If you like this video, leave us a thumbs up and consider subscribing and ringing that bell so you can always be notified when we upload new content.
From the characters that I've played since my time here, Erwin has been by far my favorite and one that most people enjoy the most. I really enjoyed being a zombie, being able to do the guttural sounds and all the fun phlegmy noises. That one was a lot of fun, but nothing was quite enjoyable as playing Erwin.
Probably my favorite spot is this new flying monkey, just because of that new interaction. You get to make people laugh, you get to scare people. Some people are terrified of monkeys, which I don't understand, but it happens. Especially a 5'7" monkey, you don't really see those out in the wild. So
Ripper Victim is where my heart is.
Tin Man is a character who's near and dear to my heart, but Tin Man is a character I read 14 books about, and I really knew a lot of backstory going in. And for that one, reframing it for a horror mindset was hard because I loved the character so much as a nice, innocent guy.
During the time when I got the job here, I was taking acting classes, and I told my acting coach, I said, hey, I just got a job at a haunted house, so can you give me some pointers? And she said she never worked in a haunted house before, so she doesn't know, what it's like. So I told her, I said, I'm a straitjacket patient. She said, give that character a name, write a backstory on her.
It's kind of a process getting into becoming a caveman. You have to turn off a lot of the skills you use to interact with people in a normal way and kind of dial it back.
Well, creating a character, you have a little bit more freedom with what you want to do with it. You can shape it and mold it into what works for you the best. With a movie character, it's kind of set in stone what you have to do, which makes it easier, but you have to think very hard about how that person would act in that situation. So it's very, very different because you can't just change it to how you need to make it fit to you.
Jackie is a clown in London. He loves masks. You can never quite find a mask that really worked for him well enough, so he eventually just kind of devolved into needing him to feel more real, and he realized the only way to do that was to cut them off of people, and so he'd start his own collection.
So for my character, it's a demon-possessed dummy, so I'm thinking that it was either demon-possessed, he's a little mischievous creature trying to terrorize people. So I got kind of two backstories, that aspect. So when I think of a dummy, I think of this little puppet that's running around, kind of quirky, just like fast movements, peering right before you, without you knowing it being there. And I like to incorporate that a lot into that role.
not every spot is the same. Some spots are terrifying and are meant for scares. My new spot as this flying monkey is almost more comedic. You get to interact with audiences in different ways that I didn't really expect.
I named my character Christine after Christine from Phantom of the Opera, even though that was in France and this was in London. But to me, it was kind of a similar situation. Christine got, kidnapped from the Phantom and locked in his dungeon for a long time, and that's kind of how I felt in that scene. I was kidnapped from Jack the Ripper and locked in his basement until someone could come get me out, or until I would inevitably die. So, but I loved that scene. It was a lot of fun, a little emotional at times, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for the Tin Man, whenever I reframed it, I kept in mind things that are unsettling, even though they don't necessarily mean you harm. And what I ended up coming up to was homeless people. My Tin Man is very much inspired by a homeless man who's just asking for things that seem harmless, but it still bothers people. Like, he's asking for a heart, and in his mind, you've got lots of organs, you probably don't need that one. I like to find inspiration from places that I don't think are traditional for horror. I feel like we've got enough people pulling from horror movies and science fiction genre that we've kind of got that.
I started watching mental institution videos and everything. She started to show me, what's it like being a mental patient. So I started watching. It was one scene in The Devil's Rejects, and the lady was like, "We'll get ya, we'll 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 get ya." So that's what that's where Tilly is set from.
Get into this more primal, like simple way of thinking and really reactionary way of processing other people in the room and the way you interact and react with people. It's weird, but once you get in the mode, you can get stuck and you get kind of cagey and kind of it's like a nervous, angry energy that you have to hold on to. You have to keep it reasonable. You have to be aware that you are still a person, but you have to like harness that weird anger. I'm not all the way in character until I'm at least a little angry.
There's definitely an element where I have a little bit more of myself incorporated with Mia. I kind of think of it as like a relationship almost. Like she's kind of like a friend to me. So I kind of find that balance where we kind of go hand in hand and work together to make something new.
Sergei was traveling with his sister, and unfortunately they were attacked by a werewolf. While he was able to protect his sister, he was not able to do the same for himself. So he started changing. And they decided the best thing to do probably to just chain him up, because they didn't know how to do it. She couldn't put him down. He couldn't take his own life, and now he's just got pieces of memory coming to him in the quieter moments, but mostly it's just rage and hunger and confusion, and then there's people coming to him, and he just can't help but attack. That's all he can think to do anymore.
Second kind of version I have with Erwin is that he was a misplaced spirit of a small child that got put into a dummy, and he's stuck in this room for eternity with nobody else. So when people come in and interact with him, he gets so excited that new friends are there to play with him, and he wants them to stay there forever in eternity. And every time they leave, he gets upset. More people come in, and he's excited again, and just a little energizer ball of energy running around.
As the monkey, we get to do all kind of stuff. I get to, shake my butt and do all kind of stuff. So that's part of the comedic aspect to make a lot of people laugh in this new spot. Lots of people love the flying monkeys, love their energy, and there's a lot of us in the spot. This spot's chock full of actors, so you get to sort of play off of other actors' energies, which is a fun thing to do. My plague victim spot. I was by myself the whole time, so I had to. If I got tired, I had to energize my own self, which was tough on nights when we scare 8,000 people in a single night.
Whenever they gave me my zombie spot, the Baron Woolbooth, I was supposed to be pretending that I was eating this body, and then I would jump at people anyway. And the focus on that for me was, okay, well, why doesn't he kill these people that he jumps at? Why does he stop there? And I realized that I was probably just protecting the food I already had. So I started thinking, and this might sound strange, of the chain chomps from Mario Brothers, and how they're that perfect example of terrifying. And its inspiration, according to the guy who made Mario, was dogs on a chain. And so I came to this kind of dog mentality, and I decided that the Baron had trained dogs for the SS. He was a Nazi. And that when his brain started to rot and he came back as a zombie, all he really remembered was the dogs and that particular ferocity and that idea of protecting what was theirs. So a lot of my zombie was inspired by dogs and animals and chain chomps from Mario Brothers.
And the whole scene, the bookcase would actually fall, and people just thought it was an accident. They thought, oh no, this is not supposed to actually happen. So whenever that thing fell, they fell to the ground. It was great.
Get to know your character, experiment. For Erwin example, I was inspired to create that character not just by haunts. I did watch Dead Silence. I watched the Slappy from the Goosebumps series, but it's not just horror where I draw the inspiration. I got the voice from Stuart from Mad TV. I got the shuffle walks from the Goosebumps. I wanted to approach it as a friendly character, but still creepy, And most of what it do isn't just the voice or the face expressions, but the movement and movement of your body. So that's also a key point. You don't want to have lazy posture. You want to be what that character is. And for me, it's stiff puppet, sharp movements, things like that. So just look for our inspiration everywhere. And honestly, your character will essentially make itself, and it will be brilliant.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. We really hope you enjoyed learning about some of the characters we have here at the 13th Gate.
Next week's video is going to be a little different, but leave us a comment if you think you know what it is.
See you later. You didn't say check it out.